Shock claims Sarah flips the lid on the real paternity between Harry and Charles. The Duchess of York is ready to break her silence. Harry's paternity has been subjected to much speculation over the course of his 36 years of life, with persistent rumors suggesting the Duke of Sussex's biological father is actually Princess Diana's red-headed lover, James Hewitt, not Prince Charles. James, a cavalry officer who began an affair with Diana after he was tasked with giving her riding lessons, has firmly rubbished the claims. And now Diana's closest royal ally, Sarah Fergie Ferguson, is determined to put the silly rumors to bed once and for all. Fergie is nothing short of exasperated that this story crops up every few years, a royal insider tells New Idea. It frustrates her to let this go on, which is why she broke ranks. She's sick of hearing it. A close confidant of late, the People's Princess Fergie would have been privy to many of Diana's secrets. They had their tiffs over the years, but Fergie was one of the few people Diana could turn to with delicate matters, the insider continues. Fergie swore to take many of Diana's secrets to the grave, but Harry, not being Charles's kid, is simply just not one of them. Not helping matters is the royal family's stance of maintaining a dignified silence on the matter, which insiders say has always bothered the royal rebel Fergie. Why not nip it in the bud, ponders the source. It's an offensive rumor and it's the last thing they all need to hear right now, especially Charles. Now that Fergie is determined to publicly go into bat for Diana, arguing that the facts and timeline clearly speak for themselves. Diana hadn't even met Hewitt when Harry was conceived in 1984, the source explains. It's chronologically impossible for Hewitt to be the father. It's all a silly conspiracy theory, and she's absolutely fed up with it. There's absolutely no question that Charles is Harry's father. Recently, Fergie lamented her sadness over not being a grandparent together with her friend. Speaking to Bella magazine, she said, "We'd be having granny parties together and having a great time." Meanwhile, according to a royal expert, the new Princess Diana movie Spencer is bad news for Kate Middleton. Miss Daniela Elzer claims the royal family appears to be getting a pasting again, this time via Twilight star Kristen Stewart, and it's Kate who will bear the brunt. The author wrote on news.com.au, quote, "At the 10-year mark in most jobs, you are entitled for long-term service leave. Now, having hit that professional milestone might be the time for Kate, the Duchess of Cambridge, to start inquiring about whether an extended break is one of the perks of her royal gig." Curiously, the woman about to make the future queen's life that much harder is Twilight star and scowl aficionado Kristen Stewart, with that first trailer for Spencer, her Diana, Princess of Wales biopic, debuting on Friday morning. The 1-minute-long clip shows the former teen star as the doomed princess, with Stewart's Diana doing a lot of emotionally wrought running and mournful staring off into the distance. While not a huge amount of detail is known about the project, set during some unspecified point in the early 90s over a 3-day period at Christmas at Sandringham, Her Majesty's private Norfolk estate, which seems unequivocal, is that with Spencer, the royal family looks set for a fresh on-screen mauling. Shots of fussy meals, long lonely corridors, and ominous rolling mist all feature along with references to the 5, count 'em, wardrobe changes required per day during the Windsor's annual festive break hardly bode well for Team Corgi, aka the royal family. The gloomy gothic vibe of the whole thing portends very, very badly for the firm, who has in the recent decades since Diana's years gone to great lengths to revamp their frosty image. Responsible for much of that painstaking groundwork, one charming, the intimate shot of her kids at a time, has been Kate. Now the 35-year-old faces the possibility of watching the carefully cultivated brand that she's largely been responsible for tending to and nurturing dealt a devastating blow. For much of the 80s and all of the 90s and well into the early aughts, the perception of the royal house was of a bunch of emotionally constipated aristocrats who seemed to care more about their ponies and bloodlines than the well-being of the more vulnerable souls in their midst. The Diana story took on mythical proportions. The doomed virginal sacrifice, the pretty debutante proffered up to keep the Windsors in the crown business. For 15 years, the world watched on as her story unfolded. And for much of that time, if she was the heroine, then the villain of the piece was the royal family. Her tale, along with that of Sarah, Duchess of York, transformed the concept of marrying into the royal house from a romantic dream to a real-life horror movie. The princesses taught the world that to marry a top-tier HRH was to submit oneself to this cabal of cold fish, and that life within the gloomy palace was harrowing, deeply lonely experience. And then Kate Middleton, lover of high-knee boots and bouncy blow-dries, emerged on the scene, pushing all the sadness and misery out of view and replacing it with a jolly hockey sticks cheer. As the 21st century took off, the next generation of frontline royals, Princes William and Harry, came into full view, and they, along with Kate, handily helped the royal family undergo something of a 21st century makeover. Things started to seem settled and, dare I say it, far less dysfunctional. Prince Charles married his paramour of 3 decades plus, Camilla Parker Bowles, and with William and Harry regularly photographed looking at ease with their freshly minted stepmother. In 2011, William and Kate tied the knot and the world swooned, totally enamored with this youthful, peppy version of what the royal family could look like. She showed that, like the Cowardly Lion, they had a heart. The public started to see a blood beat in the icy veins of the monarchy. What Kate and William managed to do was make the world forget about how, for decades, the Queen et al. Were synonymous with a certain callousness and emotional barbarism. Look, another cute photo of Prince George. More adorable and relatable snaps of gabbling kids and dogs. In the decades since then, Kate has done nothing but work studiously hard to cement that picture of the royal family as, in fact, a family, even a relatively functional and happy one, transplanting the far more bitter version which preceded it. But now all of that hard graft could be undone thanks to Spencer and the next season of The Crown, which will cover, roughly, the 90s, including the sour disintegration of Diana and Charles's marriage and the princess's tragic death. These 2 big-budget projects could very well undermine Kate's rehabilitation project by vividly reminding audiences the world over of one of the more shameful chapters in the palace history. With Spencer and the Crown, Diana's suffering is about to be shunted back to the fore. And with that, who was responsible, at least partly, for that suffering, i.e. the Queen, the Queen's family members, and the institution the Queen heads up. The benign grandmotherly countenance that Her Majesty currently enjoys could be swiftly replaced with that of her as the head of an organization that sucked in, chewed up, and spat out a beautiful, if very fragile, woman. The timing could not be worse, with Her Majesty's image already under increasing pressure on multiple fronts. For one thing, she's failed to adequately deal with the allegations of institutional racism raised by Harry and his greedy wife Meghan earlier this year, trying and failing to sweep things under the priceless Aubusson carpet. Even more dangerous for her is the continued public support of her son, Prince Andrew, after he was sued in a Manhattan courtroom earlier this month by Virginia Jeffrey when she was a 17-year-old sex slave. The Duke of York has repeatedly and vigorously denied Jeffrey's claims. Still, the fact that the 95-year-old sovereign moved last week to ensure Andrew retains the prestigious role as Colonel of the Grenadier Guards, despite him having stepped down as a working member of the royal family, is nothing short of the height of hypocrisy. Harry, having similarly quit as a representative of the Crown, was forced to relinquish his cherished military roles. Whatever damage that Spencer might do to the royal family's standing, it will fall to Kate to try and regain that lost ground. Sigh. Not only does she have to bring up 3 small children and perennially ensure that her hair is Insta-worthy, but it will also continue to fall on her to shore up the House of Windsor every time their very checkered past painfully reasserts itself into every conversation and the news cycle. For the Queen and her family, the ghost of the early 90s Christmas past is back. Let the haunting, and for Kate, the bloody hard work begin again.